Okay, when I was building my freedom, I used to wake up at 2 a.m. I would wake up at 2 a.m. to start working on my side hustle so that I'd have 8 hours on the side hustle before driving to the main hustle, which I couldn't stand, by the way, and working 8 hours at that. Come home from work, make myself a dinner, do some laundry, go to bed, wake up at 2, repeat. And I did that more or less for 6 years. There was variations. At one point I was waking up at midnight. No distractions. The collective consciousness is asleep and I can be up. My mind and thoughts are clear and I can be present with what I'm creating and really drop into flow. That's where I find myself in those late hours when everyone else is gone and there's no sound, just me and what I'm creating. So that's why I did it that way. I found that the most important hours of the day were the first 4 out of bed. So I made sure to do everything for what was going to become my future in those first 4 hours. The most important hours of the day are the first 4. The most important things I would do with each day. For me, back in time, that was my drum career, my YouTube channel, my musicianship. So I spent 4 hours at the drum set or editing videos or creating and so on and so forth for that part of my life, for that moment in time. I did that for 6 years. I wasn't always getting up at 2, like I said. Sometimes I was getting up at midnight. Other times I was getting up at 4, 3. There was always an early rise followed by as much grind as possible on something that was going to elevate me out of my current predicament. I didn't like the job I had. I didn't like the people I was surrounded by. I didn't like the way of life I was living. I wanted control over my own money, time, life, travel. I wanted to decide to do something and actually be able to do it, whether it be because of funds or connections or skill or ability. Did not matter. Networking did not matter. I wanted to be able to do the things and complete the things that I wanted to do, and I wanted to get to that point. And in the end, I did. So what I discovered along that road was I was actually the entire time learning to be authentic. I was just learning to be myself. And there was certain things along the way that actually helped me to come into a deeper contact with myself. And every time I was able to figure out how to be more me, I was able to be more free within myself. And then my reality arranged itself to give me more freedom outside of myself. So it actually was 6 years of learning how to be free within me to the degree in which my outside reality could reflect the freedom that I was desiring in it all along, but had to learn how to be that free within myself first, authentic in myself first. So what were the takeaways? One of the big ones was filming myself. The truth about the camera is that as soon as I turn this camera on, well, depending on where I am, sometimes people are afraid of the camera. I've noticed that, myself included. When I first started talking to a camera, terrifying, my God. I've done over 1,000 YouTube videos at this point across 5 different channels, gotten comfortable at speaking to the camera. Why? Because I've gotten comfortable with who I am. I don't have to put on something to be here to speak to you. I just turn that on and I'm me. So there's no effort and I'm not afraid to be me. Once again, authentic, free within me to be me. Now my outside can be as free as what I hold within. So that's one of the big ones, was the more I filmed myself, the more I performed live on the drum set and to the camera on the drum set, the more I spoke to the camera in the reaction videos and the lesson videos, and the more types of content, eventually I started streaming on Twitch, the more types of content I produced, the more I got to the point where I couldn't pretend. It was too much energy and too much effort to remember the mask, to remember to put the mask on, to pretend to be something that I wasn't. So I just slowly started to take the mask off and be more me in every video. And the more me I could become, once again, I found that freedom within it. That was one of the big things, was starting to film myself. Number 2 was letting go of all of the voices that aren't mine. In my head, I had a lot of voices that didn't belong to me. I didn't know that. It's hard to know that. If nobody ever tells you that, how do you know that? Any voice that isn't kind, caring, compassionate, honest, loving is not your own voice. It's somebody else's. It's something you picked up along the way. There's that line in that Disturbed song, it's like, who taught you how to hate? So you picked up all the voices that are telling you you're not good enough, all the ideas that you can't do the things you want to do. All of these limiting beliefs are things you picked up along the way from who knows where, who knows what. Everybody has a different story when it comes to where they picked up the impressions that are keeping them in the prison of their own design. But nonetheless, you have collected the impressions. Now to let go of the impressions is part of the inner work in which frees us, right? That's part of that 6 years of grind what I did was I just removed all of the limiting beliefs. How did I do that? Mostly through completed action. When I would set myself out to do something, whether it was like learn a really difficult song on the drum set or gain a certain amount of subscribers. Like for me, I really wanted 100,000 subscribers on my first YouTube channel, and then I got to like 300K and I blew my goal way out of the water. Completing these goals, completing the actions that I set out to do, actually erased so many limiting beliefs. All of the beliefs that you're not good enough, all of the beliefs that you are unworthy, these sorts of things, they start to become eradicated when you start to see what you're capable of. How can the guy who has the big audience on YouTube, in my case, everybody has their own thing, but I'm speaking to my story. How can the guy with a big audience on YouTube be a failure? Has a big audience and has figured out how to support himself and others and run a business. How can that guy be what the limiting beliefs are telling him to be? So over the course of 6 years, as I completed my goals, as I completed my actions, very important, I closed the doors successfully on things that I set out to bring about. As I did that, I was eradicating limiting beliefs along the way. I'm becoming more and more comfortable with who I am authentically. Okay, so the first one's filming myself. The second one was completed actions. Those two were super important in discovering freedom within myself. And then the third way that only came about at the tail end of the 6 years, 7 years that I was building my freedom. The third way that came about was the spiritual process, the spiritual journey. So that included, for me, it included plant medicine, meditation, it included actually finding and developing and creating my own community around me, which isn't necessarily part of the spiritual process, but for me it was. Yoga, ice baths, spending time in nature, learning the Dharma, learning about Hinduism, Buddhism, and so on and so forth, learning about Eastern religion. That sort of spiritual process that came about at the very end was the final pieces that needed to fall into place for me to, inside of myself, shift into the authenticity or into the level of freedom inside that I was desiring on the outside. And then boom, my reality shifted into the freedom that I carry myself in today. Am I completely free? I don't think anybody is completely free unless you're enlightened. Only the Buddha can say complete freedom, right? Because we are in this matrix of reality, this third density perspective where we're inside the body. So we can't say we're completely free because the body, you know, there's lots of things, in lots of ways in which we aren't free. But for me, the level of freedom in which I need to maintain, or I needed to, or I wanted to get to in the journey, I have more or less arrived at, so that I can be comfortable. Because prior to this level of freedom, I was not comfortable. I was suicidal, I was depressed, I was addicted to drugs, and so on and so forth. So for me, like, in order to get to the point where I wasn't suffering daily, I needed a certain level of freedom. And that level of freedom I arrived at after the 6 years of working, and those three major methods in which I uncovered and cultivated my own authenticity. And that is filming myself really helped, completing actions, so actually like listing a goal and going after it and finishing it, and then the spiritual process. Those three helped me to discover as much authenticity as I could cultivate in the journey. Thank you so much for watching this video. I hope you enjoyed. If you want my assistance in your own journey of authenticity, of becoming free in any way, shape, or form, I am a life coach and you can hire me for sessions. The first session is completely free. You can find out how to do that. Apply for the session down in the description below. Thank you so much for watching this video. I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.
I gotta cut to the chase. Everyone give me some space. Don't fall out, we fall into place. Every step walking with grace, amen. Keeping my foot off the brakes. Impact, I'm ready to brace. We fall down and land on our face, just to get up and finally escape. Wait, boom, boom. Baby, I'm trying to get paid.